Okay, hello, good evening, everyone. My name is Brad Gottschall. I am the Lower Paxton Township Manager, and in typical fashion, I'm going to give a brief overview of tonight's meeting. Ahead of that meeting, particularly for the benefit of those who may be watching at home. Under new business, the board will receive a presentation of Ordinance 20-02, creating within the codified ordinances Chapter 131, dealing with noise, which is currently listed within the zoning ordinance. Next, the board will consider taking action on two separate resolutions. Resolution 20-07, establishing a procedure under which unnecessary personal property may be disposed, and Resolution 20-09, authorizing the execution of an agreement with PPL for the upgrade of streetlights to an LED type. Lastly, under new business and before taking action on improvement guarantees and the payment of township and authority bills, the board will consider a final land development plan for Enders Insurance. At this time, members of the board are seated and prepared to begin business. Thank you.
Thank you, and good evening, everyone. We'll call this meeting of the Lower Paxton Board of Supervisors to order. I would like to ask everyone to please rise, and Mr. Judd will lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We will now move to approval of minutes from the meeting of December 3rd, 2019. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Mr. Chairman, I'll move we approve the minutes of December the 3rd, 2019 as prepared and circulated.
So moved. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. I would like to announce that prior to this meeting, the Board of Supervisors met in executive session to receive information from the Township Manager and the Township Solicitor, and will do so again following this meeting. With that, now is the time for public comment on an item that is not on the agenda tonight. Would anybody like to address the board on an item not on the agenda? Okay, seeing none, we'll move to chairman and board member comments. Board members, any comments this evening?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I would like to congratulate Sergeant Cover from the police department. He was one of 14 officers from Dauphin and Cumberland County that received an award from PennDOT for aggressive driving enforcement and education projects. So congratulations to Sergeant Cover. And last night, Mr. Zumas and Mr. Chrisman and I attended the Council of Government meeting, and we had Dan Cohen from Cohen Law Group, which was nice to put a face with a name because we all are recognizing him through emails and everything, but we never get to meet him. So he was there, and he represents municipalities on the cell towers. And there's a bill before the House, House Bill 1400, which would take away the authority of municipalities to manage and regulate the cell towers. So we did get a lot of information from him last night. He did tell us that there's 3 carriers in the United States, and that's AT&T, Verizon, and Sprint and T-Mobile will be on together. And by 2026, there could be as many as 800,000 of these DAS systems in the United States. So we're going to be involved in that House bill because we can't have our authority taken away from us. Do you gentlemen have anything that you want to add?
I would just say whether or not, well, if it doesn't pass, then we're going to have our work cut out for us to make sure we enact what we need to enact to regulate these towers.
Yeah, because they are in the public right of way, and they can just put them wherever they want to. So we need to regulate. I know we need the 5G, the businesses need the 5G, but we have to be able to regulate them in our municipality.
And we will have that opportunity with writing an ordinance that will allow us to do those things, and was even alleged by him last evening that when we do so, that historically the state government has yielded, not 100%, but has yielded to local municipalities in designating where those towers may be. The towers, at least the ones that we were observing last night, are not the ones that we typically see on the Blue Route down in near Philadelphia that looks like a redwood tree. These look more like small telephone pole. My description of that is if you're and remember from colonial days, Mr. Henry, from
Sorry,
colonial
back when
days,
you were
those who
Your
are
first-hand
who are in the
recollection?
artillery had a long post with the piece at the end where they rammed into the cannon. It's like that if you turn it upside down, and the top part is at the top. It's very slender. It's about the size or as tall as a light. Somewhat unobtrusive. Notice I said somewhat. I didn't say that it was not. But nonetheless, they will be available, and in some communities they already exist. I know in Mr. Zumas has said in his area, is it Jersey? Where you
in New Jersey?
in areas where I'm familiar with in Jersey, they already have established them. So they will be moving in shortly. So we need to be prepared to receive them, to accept the applications, to review them, but have an ordinance in place.
And the key to that whole thing is they're going to be every quarter mile. That's close together.
Well, we will continue to keep an eye on the proposed legislation and begin the process of developing our own ordinance. Mrs. Lindsay, anything else?
No, I'm good, thank
Over
you.
there? Anybody else have a
Talk
comment?
about Gary's driving.
Okay. With that, does the manager have any? Behave. Does the manager have anything to add?
No, I have nothing particular tonight.
Wise move. With that, we'll go to old business, of which there is none. And that brings us to new business. The first item is the first presentation of Ordinance 2020-02, this creating Chapter 131 of the Codified Ordinances titled Noise and Regulating Noise.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Resolution 20-02 does just that. The language before the board this evening is almost verbatim, with the exception of the last portion found currently within the zoning ordinance. The only thing that has been added is the enforcement of such ordinance, which broadens the enforcement to allow the police department to enforce such regulations. Other than that, it's exactly the same.
So it would give our police department the authority to enforce our ordinance.
Correct.
And more broadly speaking, this is part of an overall change in regards to the Liquor Control Board and who has the immediate authority. We've requested that these things the authority be handled at the township level as opposed to the Liquor Control Board.
Not quite yet. That's step two. So step one is to.
And this is part of that effort.
Correct.
We will
Correct.
make the formal request, and it will fall back to a township ordinance, which we are now tweaking to make sure it's what we want.
Absolutely correct.
Okay.
Yes. Yep.
Okay. So this is first presentation. It will then be placed on the agenda for adoption first meeting in March?
The
or
second meeting.
Second meeting? We have
Correct.
some
Just
time
because of
to-
the advertising. Yep.
Advertising time?
Yep.
Okay. So second meeting in March. Any questions, board members?
Do we have to alert the LCB that we're doing this?
No, they'll be alerted when they get a copy of the petition in the mail.
Okay.
Okay. Any public questions or comments?
Do we have to purchase any new or additional meters?
The police department will have to have either given to them or purchased a separate meter, and then that officer or officers, as the case may be, will have to be trained and appropriately certified.
So we'll have
Okay.
somebody at every shift, on every shift, that will be certified?
We haven't yet gotten into the details of how that will work, but assumably yes, that's how it will have
In
to
order
run.
to make it work, we're going to
Correct.
have to.
Yeah.
So we don't know who does the training or how long it takes or anything like that at this point.
Not quite sure of the training exactly, but yeah, I do know that the individual who is utilizing the device, must be the one trained and certified. So, there is some limitations to what we can do with it, just given staffing capacity and being able to handle that. But it should work out once we identify an officer, under the busiest of shifts. in terms of noise, we should be able to pin it down rather.
And I would
Well-
assume also that some of these details you'll have for us in March when we're prepared
Sure.
to make the final
Sure.
decision. Thank you.
Was there a question? Yes, if you could come to the podium and give us your name and address, please.
Just turn the mic on there, on the bottom of the mic.
Little green button.
Good evening. My name is Aaron Demoto. I live at 2102 Sycamore Drive. I saw on the previous agenda for the resolution and thought this might be related, so you've answered that question. I guess I do have a particular concern, but wanted some general information. I just kind of was wondering how this came about. I watched the video of the last meeting, and it was just a vague mention of some public interest in this change. I'm just wondering if there was a specific request for this and who it might have come from. I'm assuming somebody that has a liquor license.
There has been ongoing interest from the business community in this particular ordinance or in this particular issue. So yes, come from the business community.
Okay. Reason I'm here is because I had an issue last summer with music, live outdoor music at Greystone Public House. I live in the neighborhood across the street, and it was quite annoying and intrusive last summer, and I'm guessing that this has something to do with them wanting to change the rules and be able to continue playing that music. Obviously, I am concerned about that, probably opposed to it. I see you're doing some things to address that, but I would ask that you give this a lot of thought, because I put some stuff together. I don't need to get into it right now. It looks like we're in the early stages, but between my house and Greystone, there's at least 40 other houses that hear the music louder than I do. So this will likely affect a lot of people. So I just asking you to take this very seriously, because it was, I was rather upset last year with the amount of noise. It was every Thursday, every Saturday. I called the township and spoke to Mr. Garrett several times, and finally figured out that the liquor code and the state police were the ones that I needed to contact about this. I didn't really get any response. I spoke to, I guess, the manager of Greystone, and there wasn't a whole lot of accommodation made. So if this goes through and this continues, it's really going to affect my enjoyment of my property. So appreciate any consideration and discussion, and I'll keep track of it, I guess. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any additional questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, we will now move to item B under new business. This is action on resolution 2020-07, establishing the procedure and authorization for the disposition of unnecessary personal property. We did discuss this at workshop. Do you want to give us just a very brief explanation, Brad, and we'll go from there?
Sure. Members of the board, if you recall, at last meeting I discussed that township code, the second-class township code, allows townships to identify its own procedure under which it gets rid of or disposes of personal property, which, as defined in law, is property other than real estate. So we're not talking about the manager's wristwatch or anything, but I have before the board this evening a resolution which establishes such a procedure that would allow us to dispose of such personal property. And also, it was mentioned last meeting, Resolution 15-18, which was previously enacted by the board, which allowed the fire companies to have first due at receiving such property, and receiving such property at 40% reduction of cost under fair market valuation. So I have included that as well in this resolution. under Section 1C1. So that is language that was contained within Resolution 15-18, which the board has asked that be placed into this
Right.
document as well. So other than that, if the board has any questions or anything, I'd be happy to
No.
to answer them.
I think,
Any board questions?
no, we've discussed this one.
Any public question or comment? Seeing none, would there be a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll move we approve Resolution 2020-07, which establishes the procedure and the authorization of the disposition of unnecessary personal property as presented and recommended by Mr. Gutschall.
So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Item C under new business, we need to take action on Resolution 2020-09, and this is for Street Light Services Agreement providing for the furnishing of electric street lighting service to the Township of Lower Paxton. Again, we discussed this last week, but very briefly, Mr. Manager.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This resolution allows the township to enter an agreement with PPL. Essentially, the street lights that are owned by PPL through this resolution and agreement will be upgraded to LED. 445 street lights will be upgraded to LED. This does come at a slight cost. Once approved, the township will be billed $1,225 in order to upgrade 113 of the lights, which basically have been installed within the last 10 years. That's PPL's threshold for determining cost to upgrade. So once completed, the project will lower the cost of the township's monthly PPL bill by about $650 a month. So
It's a big savings.
nearly $8,000 a year.
Newer ones, we have to pay to replace them. But
Correct.
those are 113 out of 445.
Correct. Yes.
The balance of the 445 are free.
Free to upgrade. Correct.
That's a huge savings. And I think they'll be brighter also, which people will like.
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
Just a quick comment. I think we discussed it last week, and Robin, you're right, they will be brighter,
Right.
which could lead to some people complaining that the light that's outside their bedroom window that's been there forever is now brighter than it's ever been. Will that, whose responsibility will it be to adjust that light?
Yeah, so, we ask that if a resident does encounter that issue once the light is installed, that they just call either PPL or the township, and PPL will make the appropriate change to the light. Yep.
They can adjust or they can put a shield on that.
Correct.
We've been through that encounter
Yep.
before. That's not new.
Now, Brad, what about the residents that pay for a light outside their house? Because PP&L, and if we did a study, they, wasn't warranted to put a light. And some people pay for that light outside their house. So will they then have to contact PP&L and have that changed to LED?
Yeah, so I'm not particularly familiar with those arrangements, but I'm assuming that the resident has a solo agreement with
Right, they
PPL,
pay
so they
for
would
it.
have to reach out and
It is a
Make the
private
appropriate-
arrangement.
Right.
I have one
Right.
that I pay for in front of my house, and what occurred is when the old bulb burned out and they replaced it, they replaced the bulb with an
Oh, with
LED.
an LED.
LED,
Yeah.
Okay.
right, which
So-
would make sense.
Apparently, it's their policy, as they have to be replaced, they replace them with the newer version,
It's cost
which
saving
they did
for
on
them.
their own.
It's cost saving for them as well.
Yeah,
So-
and it is brighter.
and it's a win-win situation.
In my case, I was happy that it was brighter, but it doesn't shine into my bedroom window, so. All right. Any other comments or questions? Any public comments or questions? Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll move we approve Resolution 2020-09, which approves a streetlight service agreement with PP&L, which provides the furnishing of electric street lighting service to the township.
So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we will now move to subdivision and land development. Good evening, Mrs. Zerby.
Good evening.
Good to see you. We need to take action on a final land development plan for Enders Insurance.
Yes, sir. The final land development plan for Enders Insurance proposes to consolidate 5 lots to construct a new 2-story building for Enders. The lot is in the R1 low-density residential district and the village zoning district and has a total area of 2.35 acres. The scope of the project will include the demolition of the existing Enders Insurance building, with the new building increasing to 6,200 square feet. Additional site improvements for the lot will include the expansion of the parking lot, landscaping, and stormwater management facilities. The development is proposed to have public water and public sewer, and the plan went before the Planning Commission on February 5th, 2020, and was recommended for approval. This plan comes to you tonight with 2 waiver requests. The first one is for the requirement that double or reverse frontage lots are prohibited. Staff supports this waiver as the consolidation actually removes some of the existing nonconformities, and the creation of a double frontage lot is unavoidable for this plan and does not create any issues. The second is the applicant is requesting to keep an existing tree that is located within the clear site triangle. Staff supports this waiver as the entrance to the site is remaining unchanged, and staff feels the tree is set far enough back that it does not obstruct the site distance while exiting onto Linglestown Road. The applicant has also requested a deferral of the requirement to install sidewalk along Blue Mountain Bypass until such time a connection is installed either across Blue Mountain Parkway or at the lands formerly of the Church of God. Staff also supports this deferral request. So Matt Fisher is the engineer for that project.
Okay.
If you have any questions for him this evening.
Matt, if you would please come to the podium. Do you have any remarks for us before we start asking questions?
I don't believe anything else to add to Amanda. We were before the Plan Commission twice to make sure a more clean version of the plan came to the board tonight. So what's remaining on the comment letters, we don't have any issues addressing the outstanding comments, and I feel they're relatively minor in nature.
Okay. Board members.
Yes, sir. I have some questions.
Then I'll go.
My first question, though, goes to Amanda and to Brad. On the letter that we're reading, it's Plan 2019-30. On my agenda, it's Plan 2018-30. If I'm making the motion, I want to make sure I get the correct number. So is it 2018 or 2019?
It's 2019-30.
It is 2019.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, then on my agenda, it's wrong. Okay. Now I'm ready to ask some questions. My first question is, are you authorized to speak on behalf of the applicant?
Yes.
Good. Do you have the documents in front of you?
Yes.
Good. The variants are rather straightforward because I'm not going to question any of them, as much as staff has recommended that we accept the variances, unless, Amanda, you tell me differently. They are recommended.
Yes.
That you support those waivers.
Yes.
There are 4 administrative comments. My question to you specifically is, have all 4 of those been met, or will they be met in a timely fashion acceptable to township staff?
Yes.
There are 5 general comments, and I'm going to address 2 of them specifically. Number 4, which has the 25 comments on a memo dated January 30th, 2019 from Jason Hines of HRG. Have all 25 of those items either been met or will be met in a timely fashion acceptable to township staff?
Yes.
And then number 5, which is also, I think there are 5 comments. I'm not looking for there. I think there are 4 or 5 comments that come from Jim Wetzel in a memo dated February 6, 2020, and the same questions applicable there also. That either they have been met or will be met in a timely fashion acceptable to township staff.
Yes.
Good. And then there's a last statement there that talks about the conditions after they have been met, that you'll be responsible for recording the plan with Dauphin County Recorder of Deeds and specifically providing the township with 2 recorded copies. You're in agreement with that also, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and I want that reflected in the motion as well. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mrs. Lindsay?
Well, Gary, asked some of my questions. The police had a sight distance with the Blackberry Lane. Are we not going to use that as an entrance now?
So I addressed that during the plan commission with Nick. I just don't think we got a new response from the police.
Okay, I didn't see any response in the packet, so that's why I'm asking.
Okay.
'Cause-
So our response to that is we couldn't use the existing Blackberry alley because there is an existing garage basically right on the property line that's not owned by Enders, meaning we couldn't widen and really use the Blackberry alley. Also, our initial plan that he would have made that comment on had our entrance south, almost right adjacent to Blackberry Alley. Since then, we've moved it to the north kind of parking aisle. So there's a separation of about, I believe, 50 or 60 feet to Blackberry Alley at this time.
Okay, so there's no sight distance issue then?
Correct. There's no sight distance
Okay.
issue with that.
Could we have, I would really like Officer Bartow to know that, to make sure that he's okay with that. Okay? And then the other one on, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Amanda, just for your record, I did send an official response to Nick, and I believe he was going to be relaying that onto the officer.
Okay, I'll check.
Okay. And then January 30th, 2020, there was a letter from Jason Hines. He was not in favor of the waiver for the sidewalks. So did the Planning Commission go against what the engineer had said? If I read it right, he was not in favor of the waiver for the deferred, I shouldn't say the waiver, for the deferring of the sidewalks.
So between him issuing that letter and the Planning Commission meeting, I provided additional justification
Okay.
to the township, and I believe at the meeting he was in support of that. The Planning Commission did not go against his recommendation.
And that was accepted by staff, I'm assuming. Otherwise, Amanda would have objected when I asked you about the 25
Well,
points.
you know, he wasn't, in favor of the deferring, and I just wanted to know if he changed his mind or did staff go against, so.
He changed his mind,
He
yes.
did.
Yeah.
Okay,
With the additional information that was provided.
okay. All right, thank you. I had other questions, but Gary already asked them, so.
I think one of the most important things for the village is the village design standards. Are those mandatory building standards that if you want to build or renovate there, you have to?
For the village district?
Yeah.
They're suggested.
They're suggested, but you're agreeing to comply with them, with the village building standards.
So I think Andy Enders might be a better person to ask that question too. We went over
As
that
far as
during
the
the
architectural-
variance, right, the architectural
Okay.
standards.
So you're talking about the architectural
Design
features.
standards, I shouldn't say
Yes.
building standard, I'm sorry.
Yes.
You're talking about the architectural features of
Yeah.
the building, how the building's going to look
How
when
it's
it's
gonna
done.
look.
Correct,
Yeah.
yes.
Will it, so I understand the question.
So-
Will the building fit in?
The building is,
yeah.
the new building is going to meet, I believe, the requirements for the village district standards, yes.
Good.
We went over that in the variance, when they applied for their variance. It
I-
just wasn't put in
I
this
figured,
memo.
I just know that would be probably something very important for people
Yes.
who enjoy the village.
They're making they're bringing the building forward. They're actually making the existing area more non-conforming than it is now. It's going to fit more into the village standards now.
Okay, and I just wanted to clarify for myself and the public that those are just suggestions, but
Yes.
that this building design will comply, which is
Yes.
great.
Well, the Enders have been very active for many, many years on
Right,
upholding the integrity of the appearance of the village, so
I assumed.
no doubt.
I guess, Mr. Fisher, I have one more question.
Yes.
Will the old building be tore down and then they'll be building the new one, or are they gonna, how does that happen? Are you gonna tear the old one down and build, or?
At this point, we're tearing that one down and then building the new one.
Okay,
It was back and forth for a little while what direction we were going to go, but
Okay.
that's the plan for right now.
okay, good.
Sounds like a logistical challenge.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Will it require tents,
Trailers.
trailers?
Hoffman Ford has a few that they weren't.
Yeah, hey, Huffman Ford made it through with the trailers. There you go, guys.
Any other questions? Comment? Any public questions or comments? Yes, sir, please.
Good evening. My name is Andrew Enders. I reside, unfortunately, in West Hanover Township, but my business is in Lower Paxton Township, where I lived the majority of my life. Just briefly, to the Board of Supervisors, I want to compliment staff of Lower Paxton Township throughout this entire process. Land development can be very daunting. I have worked with many clients on it and never gone through it myself until now. And staff did a fantastic job working with Matt Fisher and Nick DeSanto on behalf of our team at Enders. Supervisor Judd, just to comment on your question, we engaged RLPS Architects, a firm that a dear friend of mine that grew up back in Ritzy Village in Fishing Creek, he works for now. So he's technically just outside of Linglestown, but very familiar with Linglestown, actually attends church at Linglestown Life. The charge to Andy Bladen and the team at RLPS Architects was to design a building that complied fully with the village district overlay, including all of the architectural features and attributes that you would find throughout the village. Polly Murphy and Joe Murphy from the Historical Commission are dear friends of mine, and I engaged them very early on to really get their blessing. We met at St. Thomas Roasters early on, and they did so, and they've been very supportive throughout the entire project. So as Amanda commented on, our goal was really to blend in and enhance our structure and really have it be a cornerstone of Linglestown on the west end of the village. So,
And I assume that, Mr. Enders, but I wanted to make sure everybody knew that.
I appreciate your the question.
And thank you very much for the kind words about the staff. I appreciate that. I know they do.
And just if I can comment further, my family, I'm third generation. We've been in Lower Paxton Township for our entire existence, and it was very, very important to me that we stay not only in Lower Paxton Township, but we stay in Linglestown, which has been our home for the better part of 20 years. So thank you for making that possible. We are going to be adding folks to our location in Linglestown, so we're growing. I do champion this as a bit of economic development. Thank you very much for allowing us to do so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we do have many friends in West Hanover Township, which is a great suburb of Lower Paxton.
Oh. Well, if you have Polly's approval, I guess that's really all we need to know, right? Anything else, sir? Okay. Any other board questions?
Nope.
Is there a motion then?
Yes. Mr. Chairman, I will move that we approve the final land development plan for Enders, Plan 2019-30, which will include the requested deferral, the one requested deferral, the 2 waiver requests, the 4 administrative comments, the 5 general comments, and specifically number 4, number 5, which include the memos of January 30th, 2019 from Jason Hines of HRG, and the memo dated February the 6th, 2020 from Jim Wetzel, and also that the completion of the documents then, after they're filed with the county, 2 copies will be provided to the township, be approved.
So moved. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. There you go.
Thank you.
Thank you for staying and growing in Lower Paxton Township. Very happy to see that.
Thank you for your commitment, and thank you for doing an excellent job in working with our staff to make this an easy process. Many who come before us with this process have it becomes very complex, very convoluted, and you guys have done an excellent job of putting it together and working smoothly with our officials. Thank you.
Okay, thank you all very much. Thank you, Amanda. Appreciate the great work. That now brings up improvement guarantees. Improvement guarantee, since there is one. Fairly straightforward. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll move we approve the one improvement guarantee is presented and recommended by Mr. Gutschall.
Recommended by Mr. He carries that high recommendation.
I'm sorry, I took a liberty.
I'll second.
Okay, with that, is there all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. See, your recommendation carries great weight on improvement guarantees. That now brings us to the payment of bills for Lower Paxton Township and the Lower Paxton Township Authority. Madam Treasurer.
Yes, please bear with me because there's a lot.
There's a lot.
There are.
Recommend that we pay the bills of Lower Paxton Township Authority, the LPT check register, the LPT check card LPT P-Card check register November 2019, the LPT P-Card remittance November 2019, LPT P-Card check register and remittance December 2019. The Sewer Authority check register, the Sewer Authority P-Card remittance November 2019, Sewer Authority P-Card check register November 2019, Sewer Authority P-Card check register and remittance of December 2019.
I didn't get all that. Could you repeat? So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. And with that, any additional announcements from the board or Mr. Gottschall?
Just Tuesday night, the Sewer Authority will be meeting in this room at 7 o'clock.
Okay. The next meeting of this board will be a business meeting to be held on Tuesday, March the 3rd, 2020 at 7 p.m. With that, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Moved. Is there a
Second.
second? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.